He's a tough street-fighting lawyer with the highest ratings for honesty and integrity. He's here to answer your legal questions and get you the help you need. You're listening to The Legal Lowdown with your lawyer, Joe Ingram of Joe Ingram Law. Joe Ingram has more than 20 years' experience fighting for his clients here in the state of Alabama. Joe's focus is criminal defense and family law. You don't have to face your legal issue alone. You've got Joe Ingram on your side. In case of sensitive legal matters, you can always reach out directly to Joe at joeingramlaw.com and arrange for a private consultation. And now, Alabama's defender of the defenseless, protector of the people, and all-around good guy, Joe Ingram.
All right. Today is January the 17th, 2026. You're listening to The Legal Lowdown with Joe Ingram, your Alabama lawyer, on WERC 105.5 FM in Birmingham, WBHP 102.5 in Huntsville, and WRTR Roll Tide Roll 105.9 in Tuscaloosa. Welcome to our broadcast. If you're listening to this show, you can download it, share it with your friends, ask them to listen. They can send us any questions they have. If you have a question, go to your iHeart Radio app on your phone. That's the Spy for Rent hotline. You can reach Jeff Hammock or Corey Fuller. They are my investigators. They're the best investigators in the state. If you have a question, go to the Spy for Rent hotline. Today, our special guest is the elected DA of Blount County, Miss Pam Casey. She is running for the Attorney General's office for the state of Alabama in 26. As I've told you before, this is an election year. We're going to have a lot of guests over the next year. We're going to visit with her for the first hour and talk about her quest and her march towards Montgomery. My office represents people from Huntsville, Birmingham, Montgomery, Mobile, Tuscaloosa, and even Dothan. It's a joke. It's an inside joke. If you ever listen to the first podcast, you'll know why. If you need to, and you need representation, you can always call my office, 205-825-5297, 205-825-LAWS, L-A-W-S. See how that spells? So great. You can speak with one of our intake specialists, and they'll get you in for a consultation. My office represents people in divorce cases, alimony, prenups, postnups, modifications. We represent people in criminal cases, federal criminal cases, state criminal cases, and municipal court cases. So that's a little bit about me. So let's start where we want to today. We're going to have Miss Casey. Pam, so glad to have you today.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it very much.
All right. So, Pam, tell the audience a little bit about you, your background, your resume, how you got here.
Well, you have to start at the beginning. I grew up in a little town of 700 people, Sneed Crossroads. Grew up there, small rural community, farming community. Neither of my parents had graduated high school. They were blue-collar workers. My mom worked in a sewing plant. My daddy was a highway worker, and divorced when I was young. And so I grew up in a broken home, but really had learned from them the value of hard work. Started waiting tables at a little barbecue restaurant when I was 15 years old. Worked my way through college and law school, and actually started my career at the Alabama Attorney General's office. I was an assistant attorney general and then a deputy attorney general, at first in the capital litigation division, handling death penalty cases. And then I'm not sure if I got promoted or thrown to the wolves in the violent crimes division. I'll never forget, I worked for General King at the time, and
Troy King.
Okay. Called me to the office. I got the beep to executive one day, and you always sit there and think, what have I done wrong when you get called to the back? We were in the old state house. And he's like, I heard you want to go do trial work, and I got a case for you. And I thought, oh, yeah, it's my day. He said, this case is hung twice when it's been tried. We're going to let you try it the third time. And secured convictions, a set of brothers who had killed a man. And I was able to secure convictions in that. And so there started my violent crime trek across the state, handling cases all over the state. And At the wise age of 28, I tell everybody I was too young to be afraid. I challenged the incumbent, the former DA, and an ADA in a 4-man and woman race in 2010 for Blount County DA. And when I ran back then, Blount County had never elected a female. And people said, they want to elect a woman around here. And I said, well, I think they will. Then they told me that I was too young. And I had more experience than anybody running because I tried murder cases, and the prior 2 DAs had not tried any murder cases in Blount County. And then I'll never forget one night a little lady told me, she said, I like you. I think Blount County will elect a young woman, but you're single. We want to elect a single woman in this county. And I told her, I said, if you think I'm going to get married to win this election, I'm not. Ended up winning that race. And the wonderful people of Blount County have trusted me to be their DA 2010, 2016, and 2022. During that time, I've tried, homicides and capital murders, human traffickers, child predators, and really have dedicated my life to fighting for the people of Alabama, our children, and our families. And so that's a little bit about me and a little bit about my background of kind of where I am today. And, I knew a long time ago that I one day wanted to run for Attorney General because I believe that God put me on earth with a mission, and that was to serve the people and to protect our children and our families.
Well, that's a good intro. I learned some things that I didn't know about you today. You said you grew up in Sneed, up in Cherokee County?
That's Blount.
Blount.
Right? Blount. Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, I think there's a Sneed up in Cherokee. That's why I was asking.
I got you. It used to be Sneed Crossroads, and then we got fancy and dropped Crossroads, and we were just Sneed.
Okay. All right. Let me ask you this. How did you get your first position at the AG's office?
So I tell everyone God has a plan. He's always working it out years in advance. So 9/11 happened when I was a junior in college, and everybody wanted to go to law school after that because people were losing jobs, and it was a really hard time to apply to law school. And I just got out a book one day and applied to probably a law school in every state, to be honest with you. And I got an offer from Seattle University out in Seattle. Had the #1 writing program in the country, legal writing program. And I got in and actually finished top of that writing program, the appellate portion. And they were looking at the AG's office for someone who could write 200- and 300-page briefs. And I apparently can do that and do that well. And submitted my resume and writing samples and got hired actually in the summer, but couldn't start until October, the fiscal year. Got to roll around till that money comes in to the state coffers. And so, God was working years in advance to get me into that position that opened the door really to put me in the DA's office, which I now see as the road to the Attorney General's office.
Yeah. Just a side question here because, I don't write a lot of briefs anymore, but every time I write one, I promise to God that'll be my last one. So did you like writing briefs?
I hate it.
Okay.
I hate the writing portion. I love the finish portion. And I think anybody who enjoys writing will tell you the hardest part is the writing portion. But I love getting a finished product done and take pride in that, that has my name on it and that I stand behind what I write and the research. I think that's important. And I think we've lost that. You, as an attorney, the legal research is a lot different today than it was 20 years ago. And even when I was in law school, Westlaw and Lexis had just kind of come on the scene, and they made us spend a whole semester in the law library doing it the old school way before we were ever allowed to even access our online research. So I enjoy writing. I've always been kind of not a loner, but I enjoy quiet time by myself. I was the only child, so I was used to that. And writing allows you to do that.
Yeah. I had a brief last year, and the head of the criminal division down there, his name is John. I'm not going to say his last name. Anyway, so John and I have a good relationship, and we'll call and we'll talk about cases we have together. I'll call him and harass him about the brief I've written. And I've asked him a number of times over the years. I'm like, John, how do you handle being in the criminal appellate division, getting all those briefs? And he told me one time, he said, Joe, what I do is kind of like triage. He said, when I get the brief, I look at it like a mass unit, and I'm looking for issues, facts, issues, facts to see what is really serious, what is not, what people have already covered. You know this. We're not going to give too much away. There's a lot of people out there that get go-bys, cans, stuff like that, don't do their own work product. And he said, then I get real briefs, and he said, then I get something like yours. And he said, I go, oh, crap, Joe's written 62 pages. I've actually got to go read some new cases. And he said he treated it like a tree on you. And I thought, okay, but I couldn't do that every day. But he can. So I was just curious about that.
Well, in the death penalty, I was handling the appeals of people who have been sentenced to death. And that's a huge transcript. And I love, even as a young child, love to read. And so I think you've really got to love to read because especially in the death penalty cases, you got to read those transcripts. And those are, sometimes thousands of pages of transcripts. And so, but no, I enjoy, I actually teach legal writing, or did for many years at the law school. And I teach a writing program for people taking the bar exam. I think there is a method to the madness. I tell people the bar exam's not hard if you know the law. You just got to know how to write. And so I enjoy that academic side of law. And I think that's a unique perspective that I bring to this race is I've argued in front of the Alabama Supreme Court. I've argued in front of the Court of Criminal Appeals. I've handled jury trials. And I'm the only one in this race that's done those things. And if you look at the Alabama Attorney General's office, over half of the employees down there either handle criminal appeals, as you said, or death penalty cases, public corruption, and or the trials division. And it's really important that we have a leader in that office that's been there and done that so that when there are the issues, you can actually, it's like having a boss who's never done the work. How do you go and talk to them if they don't know what you're even talking about? You'd be talking apples and oranges. And so I think that's what I bring to that office is real life experience, not only in the office, on the appellate side, but also on the trial side.
That's good to know. So let me ask you this, Pam. We're talking with Pam Casey. She is the elected DA of Blount County. She's running for the Attorney General's office in 26 in the Republican primary side, correct?
Yes, sir.
Don't say certainly, Pam. People would die out there. So if you win this position, and I'm not saying that because I don't think you're going to win, but I'm asking a hypothetical question. If you are elected the Attorney General, what are some things that you would like to see, areas you want to improve on, or things that you want the AG's office do that they're not doing now?
So, one of the things I see as a DA and working with law enforcement every day is the need to have more of a regional role across the state. Everybody's in Montgomery. Anybody needs assistance, DAs or law enforcement, it's really focused in Montgomery. I would love to see prosecutors and investigators placed across our ALEA regions so that our ABI or our SBI, I'm old school ABI, now they're SBI, our SBIs, our DEAs, they would have access to someone locally that they could work with and create a relationship with. And it really helps kind of mend from the investigation, prosecution, appellate side. And I think as a criminal defense attorneys, you want your prosecutors and you want your law enforcement to get the best advice they can get. And so we're going to do that. We're going to make sure that there are people assigned across the state. That doesn't happen right now. It's kind of like if I've got a recusal issue, I may send it down there. They may say, we don't have anybody to handle it. And then I've got to go find another DA that can handle that. We're not going to have those responses. We will have assistant AGs handling those prosecutions across the state. But not only that, and I've really kind of been thrown into this election portion within the last few weeks when Secretary Allen released some of our issues of non-citizens voting. And I think there's a lot of loopholes right now in our election system. And I'll be real frank with you, until I actually saw it and saw the physical evidence, because I'm an evidence kind of person, show me. You kind of question, does that really happen? And I think within the next few weeks, the people of Alabama are going to learn where the loopholes are in our voting system and how we can fix them. So as your next Attorney General, what I'm going to do is have a division that works with the Secretary of State, works with our probate judges to ensure that only U.S. citizens are voting in our elections.
Okay. Hey, I want to back up just a second because I want to educate our audience. And, a lot of people hear about these positions and they don't really know what they are, especially like the Public Service Commission. So just on a real high level for a minute here, explain to people out there, what is the AG's office for and what are they about?
So first of all, they represent the elected officials and agencies and commissions and things when they're sued. I've been sued as a DA. That's who I get my representation from. I kid people, if you haven't been sued yet, you're not doing your job because that means you haven't made anybody mad. But yeah, so the Attorney General is actually also the top law enforcement official. AGs have the ability and the authority to go into any DA's office and supersede cases. Not like that's what my goal would be, but they do have that authority. You actually could prosecute any case in the state. But not only that, you work on federal issues. You assist the legislature. When they're writing laws, they need assistance on, what's the constitutionality of the law that we're writing or the new law we're writing. And additionally, they're going to defend those laws. When a legislature passes a law, there's almost always going to be a challenge to that. And the AG's office is going to have to represent them. And so the AG's office plays so many different roles, protecting any type of federal overreach for states' rights. But the main employees in that office are going to be your criminal aspects, whether it be your appeals. It makes the final calls on things that are going to be appealed or not appealed. Let's say the state loses something. At the end of the day, the AG's office is the one, and the AG is the one that's going to make that call. Do we challenge this and take it at a higher level? That's why I think it's so important to have somebody who has that experience and has those relationships. I was District Attorney of the Year just this last year in 2025. And I have endorsements of over 50 different law enforcement officials, district attorneys, and officers across the state who've done this work and know that I'm the person with the experience to do the job.
Hey, Pam, I want to ask you a question real quick. The law that passed last May about the cannabis law and they moving the stuff like at the OG Puff stores that got moved under the umbrella of the ABC legislation. You know what I'm talking about?
I do, yes, sir.
All right. Don't quit saying sorry. All right, so I want to catch you off the cuff here. The reason I'm asking this, when you said that the AG's office gives advice about laws that are written, what do you think about this law that has just been enacted about the cannabis? Because there has been one challenge already in Montgomery, if you're not aware of that, this past summer that failed. What's your opinion on this? So.
Well, I agree with the way it was handled by the AG's office in this last in the challenge. I don't want to get into a discussion about whether or not marijuana should be legal if we're going there. So I understand. I understand what you're talking about, the drinks and all the different things that were moved. Used to, you could go into a gas station and get whatever, right? And we still see that now as there are some little drinks and things of that nature that we have young children getting access to in the gas stations. I think we have to have some protections. And if you move those to the ABC stores, you at least know who should be going in there and who shouldn't be going in there.
Right.
Okay? Right. And that's a problem if our children have access to these different things and to drinks and to all of that. And so, I support the move to the law to move that to the ABC board. But I do expect there may be additional litigation in the matter.
Yeah, just curious on that. Hey, I had a real brain question that just came to me all of a sudden. Just out of curiosity, how many people does the AG's office employ?
Probably about around 200. It kind of depends. A little less, a little more. Now, we're talking about staff.
Staff and all.
Staff, paralegals, attorneys. If I remember when I was there, it was about 170 of us total. There were about 12 of us, 13 of us or more in the Capital Lit Division. Your appellate division is going to be one of your bigger divisions. You got the Civil Division. I am National Board Certified in Criminal Trial Law. There's 2 of us in the state who have that certification. And people say, well, the AG's office does civil work too. Well, absolutely. And I've handled some civil stuff on my side, representing the state of Alabama, and forfeitures and things of that nature. But the civil aspect of it, there's a large portion of that in the office. So there's a lot more people there than people realize.
Yeah. We're talking with Pam Casey. She's the elected DA of District of Blount County. She's running for the AG's office in Montgomery. We're having a good dialogue with her in her quest for the Republican nomination. Pam, I got a question for you. As the DA, and you're in the news every week on AL.com. People see stories. I mean, I keep up with it because I think I'm a lawyer. I keep up with it a little more, right? What are you most proud of as a DA? Or is there one thing that you're really stands out that you're proud of?
Well, I am the first DA that prosecuted a human trafficker with a 4-year-old victim. That actually we tried that case, and so if I were to look back, if I'm laying on my deathbed and I had to just say what was I most proud of the work we did, and that's protecting our children and putting child predators in prison. I am it's a personal thing for me in a way, and I don't think people with that type of those crimes can be rehabilitated, and our children don't have the ability, and many times the situations to say no. A lot of threats go on, but I love working with children. I love getting justice for a young child, and so that's what I would say. The one thing that I'm the most proud of the work we've done is protecting children.
That's good. For a lot of people that don't know or don't follow the news as closely as lawyers and read AL.com stories, I'm always reading legal stories. There was a case that you tried right before Thanksgiving. I believe it was a rape case of a child. And I think the sentence was was it 700 years? Some crazy.
7 life sentences.
Seven
life without.
Yeah, okay.
He got life without, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah. And I just remember that story because I think that's probably, was that the last trial y'all probably had for 25 up there?
No, we tried another one we're going to sentence on Monday. We've tried a lot of child abuse cases this last year. I've had 2 or 3. And, and what's sad? It's sad that I can't remember them because there's so many. When I have to think about how many I've had in the last probably 18 months, I know I've had at least 2 get life without for sexually abusing small children. We have another one we tried right before So we had the one you're talking about. That was probably, and for me to say that's not the worst case I've ever seen is sad, but it was a bad case. But we tried another one, and he'll be sentenced Monday. He's an habitual, and I think he may be a lifer or life without. And, and just for the record, we make reasonable offers, I think. If you're looking at life without and I offer you 80 years, you shouldn't be offended because if you get an 80-year sentence, there's at least a chance. Okay? So you're saying I have a chance I might get out on parole. You know what life without says? You ain't getting out, okay? So I do make, regardless of what the criminal defense bar thinks, I do make, because that evidence was so strong. And I think I've done this long enough to know when I've got really strong victims that can handle the stress of testimony and when they can't, and make offers after I've evaluated the evidence.
Right. And obviously, we're about to go to break, but you have to have those conversations with the victims and see if they're okay with the offer, right?
That is that's the hardest thing I do is bringing a young child in and saying, hey, I'm Pamela. Let's talk about the worst things that's ever happened to you. And when I see them out in the community, I think every time they see me, they think about the worst thing that happened to them. And that's what's so heartbreaking for me.
Yeah, that's got to be tough. It's got to be tough. All right, folks, you're listening to the Legal Lowdown with Joe Ingram on WERC 105.5, WBHP up in Huntsville, and WRTR in Tuscaloosa 105.9. Yes, I got it right twice today. We're talking with Pam Casey, the DA of Blount County. We're having a good conversation. She's run for AG. We'll be back after the break, okay? All right, bye.
You're listening to The Legal Lowdown with your lawyer, Joe Ingram. If you need confidential legal help off air, reach out to Joe at joeingramlaw.com. Stay tuned for more. Joe will be right back after this break for news and weather. You're listening to The Legal Lowdown with Joe Ingram. Joe is a 20-year veteran of the Alabama courts specializing in criminal defense and family law. If you need a private legal consultation, email Joe at joeingramlaw.com. And now, welcome back to The Legal Lowdown with Joe Ingram.
All right. Today is Saturday, January 17, 2026. We're back. We are speaking with Pam Casey, the elected DA of Blount County. She's our guest today. She's running for the Attorney General's office. She's running on the Republican side of the ticket. Just lost for word here. The election is in May 19th. May 19th. Thank you. I forgot. Pam's looking at me like
124 days, if anybody's counting. Not
that she's keeping track or anything. 124 days. Pam looked at me like I just lost my mind. Pam, I want to ask you a question. So let's talk. We were talking about sex cases right before the break. Kay Ivey just had her State of the State address. You know about the legislation that's been brought up about making sex crimes against children a death penalty case. Where do you fall on that, and why?
So I've been a strong proponent of that long before. That really, we saw the state legislature. So get behind that after the Bibb County situation. But, Representative Simpson had that bill last term, and it didn't pass. And I remember calling him long before I announced I was running for AG. He was like, we've got to do this, because I was handling some really bad cases of children. And so I've been a huge proponent of that even before it was the popular thing to do. And I hate to say it like that, but we seem to not be really concerned about an issue if it doesn't affect us or we don't hear about it. And DAs see and hear those things all the time that the everyday person may not see. And I've seen the need for it for years, and talked with Representative Simpson on multiple occasions about, hey, we got to get this done. And so I hope the legislature moves quickly and that Governor Ivey signs it immediately.
Well, I think there's no doubt she's going to sign it, and I'm pretty sure it'll pass the legislature. We were talking during the break, and we're talking about where we are precedent-wise. The Supreme Court spoke, I think, in 2007 or 2008 and said that death penalty shouldn't apply unless it's a murder case. We were talking a little bit about that. I think there's a case in the pipeline. I did a little research last night. I think there's a Florida case that's coming up kind of challenging that. And speak to that as we're talking about precedent, and you don't know until you bring it before the court. So
that case was in 2008. It was, I think, Kennedy v. Louisiana. And the court evaluated and looked at it. And some of their reasoning, they said, first of all, it's disproportionate. Death for death, not death for rape. But one of the things they really keyed in on at the time was, the thing of whether or not punishment is cruel and unusual. And they really honed in on the fact that there weren't a lot of states that had laws on the books about death being appropriate for rape or sodomy or sexual abuse, torture of a child under 12. What you've seen is now that we have a lot more states who've passed the law, the argument when you get back in front of the court is going to be like, it ain't unusual. Things change over time. And we've determined that, look at these number of states, it is not an unusual punishment. And you have to bring that back. So you got to pass the law. You got to then have a case that happens. I mean, in the world I want to live in, we never have to have this law, period.
Right.
Okay. Sadly, it takes the rape, sodomy, sex abuse of a child under 12 or 7, depending on what the state has. There has to be a child endure that for the and then the child has to tell somebody. So many times I handle cases that it's a delayed report. So it's going to have to happen. It's going to have to be reported. It's going to have to be investigated. It's going to have to go through the trial process, and there's going to have to be a conviction. And once that conviction happens, you're going to have to, they're going to challenge it. And you got to make sure that the attorneys for the defendant are preserving the record all the way through the trial and challenging that all the way through the trial process to preserve it for appeal. And so then you're going to have to take it up through the state courts. Okay, it's going to have to work its way through state appellate courts before the U.S. Supreme Court's ever going to get to weigh in on it. And so it's a long process to really challenge any law where the Supreme Court said that's unconstitutional.
Right.
For them to take it back up and consider it again. I mean, we're talking about years of time it would take for that to be re-challenged. And so, I kind of got talking. I think I forgot what your question was, but I just think that it takes a long time to get a law reconsidered by, or the issue, I guess I should say, the issue reconsidered by the U.S. Supreme Court. The number of cases they take off cert is like tiny. Okay. And then for them to change their stance, it takes a lot. It takes something different to show that.
Yeah. And theoretically speaking, the law we're talking about that's before the Alabama legislature, if it were to pass, and let's just say Kay Ivey signed it the next day, let's say she signed it March 1, well, then the law wouldn't apply to cases made after March 1, 2026. It wouldn't be ex post facto.
Right.
So if we signed it in 26, the law probably wouldn't even be challenged until 29 or 30.
Yeah, it could be that long, depending on when the event happens, when the investigation, when the prosecution. It takes a while for it to work its way through the system.
Yeah. Fascinating debate. It's going to be fun. Well, I shouldn't say fun. It's going to be interesting to watch as a legal observer of these things. I shouldn't have said fun. That's a bad word for this. There's no good way to say it. One thing I want to talk about with you, we're talking with Pam Casey, the elected DA of Blount County. She's running for Attorney General's office on the Republican side of the ticket. Pam, you're running for DA. Let me ask you first, most people out there have never run for office. Nobody's ever run for a county office. You're running for a state office. Explain the amount of time you're out of your life that goes into running for that kind of a state office.
So I've been on the road about a year now. I say on the road. I'm still DA trying cases. We've talked about that. I think I've probably seen you in court this past year. I don't remember if not. But, so I'm still full-time DA in grand jury and all that. And then I'm on the road. And in December, I did 5,100 miles. I am pretty much somewhere every night speaking. Sometimes I take my lunch, run, speak somewhere. But you're really trying to get, and you can't meet everybody. That's what stinks is, I am a people person, love talking, can't meet everybody. But I have learned so much this last year about our state, about the people, about issues. I was in a county, either it was Pickens or Lamar, I can't remember, and, learning that they didn't really have a ambulance system that was full-time at the time. And to think how that could affect your county, I've learned so much. Look, it's hard. One thing I regret not doing, it kind of came out a little earlier than I intended to, but God had a plan for that, and I'm glad I did. One of the local defense attorneys said, you really need to keep a journal about this, process. And I wish I had, because it really is a roller coaster emotionally, mentally, physically. I mean, it takes a lot out of you. I have a 4-year-old and a 6-year-old as well, and a husband. Okay. And so,
so you got 3 full-time jobs.
Yes. It's really 4, a wife, a mother, a DA, and a candidate. But I have enjoyed so much just the process. Now, it is not easy. It is not cheap, right? And the difference, I think, between a small race and a large race would be when you're running in a county, and I've run 2 contested races, you feel like you're in a vacuum, right? You hear what everybody says about you and who doesn't like you, because when you drive down the road, you see if they've got your opponent's sign in their yard. The one good thing about a statewide race, you go talk in Dothan, the next day you may be down in Mobile. If somebody's got your opponent's sign in their yard in Dothan, you don't see it, you think they all love you and you leave and go to another city. So that's one thing that's a little different than a local race. When I ran, I was 28. And I just tell people I was too young to be afraid, I think, because a lot of people are, I don't want to run, I'm afraid. We got one life to live. And my husband, when we talked about whether or not I was going to run or not, he said, Pamela, you will regret it if you don't. And when he told me that, I was like, you're right. And so, look, I talked to John Tyson. He ran back as a Democrat back in, I think, in 2010 maybe. And he said, you got to scratch the itch, Pamela. If you got an itch, don't regret not scratching it. And, I don't regret. I'm at the most, as crazy busy as I am. I mean, I literally I've literally spoken for lunch in Huntsville, gotten in the car and been in Andalusia by 6 o'clock to speak to Cattlemen's Association. Mm-hmm. Okay. And so, I love it. I love the people. I love learning about our state. I believe whatever we do is kind of a mission field. And I have enjoyed learning about a larger mission field out there than just Blount County. But, Blount County will always be home and will always be my heart. I tell everybody that those are the people who made me who I am. And I could never thank them enough for the opportunity to serve them these 3 terms.
Yeah. One question I want to ask you about, we were talking during the break, we're speaking with Pam Casey, DA of Blount County. Let's talk a bit about campaign finance and a statewide race.
Well, it's a lot different. I'm fortunate I have contributions from individuals from all of our congressional districts, farmers, DAs, law enforcement officers, business people. But what we're really starting to see in these races are these outside, they call them the dark money, because, we have campaign finance laws in the state that was set up to ensure that the people of the state of Alabama knew who was giving money to our candidates. So that it's I kind of say it's a lot like being a race car driver. The people of Alabama should see when you go get in your car, all the little stickers on your car. These people are who support her or him. And when we allow money to come in through a 501c4, which is a corporation, so set up out of state, and you don't know who gave that, where that money came from, then that money is given to a candidate in the state of Alabama. You don't, and we see, especially in this race, we've seen some people that it's coming from office buildings that really are just fronts for these 501c4s. And you don't know where the money came from. So we're who cares that much about the state of Alabama and the AG's race or the governor's race or lieutenant governor's race or the Public Service Commission race, that they're putting this, millions of dollars into it, but not so much that they want people in the state to know they're giving the money. And I really think the people should really spend time looking into that. I would want, as Alabama's Attorney General, to work with the legislature to prevent that. The people of Alabama deserve to know who's putting money into the coffers of our candidates. It's expensive, but money doesn't buy experience. Money can't buy you a good personality. I mean, there's a lot of things money doesn't buy. But it really saddens me to see groups trying to pull the wool over the eyes of the Alabama voter.
Yeah. We're talking about these campaign finance laws, and we're talking about dark money and all these type of things. I have 2 things that come to mind. Do you remember Sue Bell Cobb when she ran against Drayton Neighbors? Wasn't it Sue Bell versus Drayton?
It was.
And it was the most expensive Supreme Court race ever. It was like $12 million.
Right.
Do you remember that?
I do remember it. I don't remember what year it was, but I remember it.
So that came to mind. And my next question to you is, tell people out there, what kind of money does it cost to run a statewide office for AG? I mean, we look at it.
I personally believe that, $600,000-$700,000 I could run a race and win. I believe that. Now, that means I'm not paying everybody and their mama on my payroll, okay? There's a difference. People hire all these companies and things of that nature, talent agencies or this and that. Our campaign isn't really doing that. I keep a lot of it close. I do my own social media. I don't hire a company for it. My husband does my campaign finance forms. We don't hire a company to do that. So we're not paying a lot of people. We're not spreading the money out to everybody get a bite out of the apple. But it's expensive. I mean, you're looking at, TV time. If you think about it for a second, you got the markets we've got. We've got the Huntsville market, we got the Birmingham market, you got the Montgomery market, and then you got the Mobile, Baldwin County market, which is really the Florida market, and that's a more expensive market to buy TV ads. You got to have somebody create your ads. I am fortunate enough to have the abilities to do a lot of editing, videoing, and videography editing myself. I have a past history of journalism in terms of law school newspaper editing. I was one of the editors for a college yearbook, things of that nature. So I know how to work a lot of stuff that maybe some candidates don't. I don't have to pay for that because I can do my own graphics. I can do all my stuff. Now, would it be nice to have somebody I could pay to kick it down so I'm not worried about it? Absolutely. I don't pay for a driver. There are a lot of people who pay for a driver and drive them around. And so I know the people of the state of Alabama are having a hard time making ends meet.
Right.
Period. I mean, if you look at, went in the other night at the Dollar General to buy some Coke. I got a 12-pack of Diet Coke. Got up there, it was $9 and something. And I just thought, what? No, that's not right. Affordability is a big issue for the state of Alabama. And they should be offended. Voters should be offended to see candidates blowing millions of dollars on races and offices that pay $200,000 and less. What is it so much about those offices that we will throw millions of dollars at? And pretty much weakens the voice of your Alabama voter, because it's really hard for those with experience and those that are not in the pocket of special interest to tell the people of the state, hey, I'm the most experienced for this position.
Yeah. Talking with Pam Casey, the DA of Blount County. She's running for Attorney General's office. We've had a good conversation. This is Legal Lowdown with Joe Ingram. We got about 9 minutes left, Pam. I want to talk about a couple things that are related to Blount County that I want to talk about for the average person because I do criminal law. Blount County is not like Jefferson County. And you know where I'm going with this when I sit down and talk to people. How many jury weeks does Blount County have a year?
So we now have 10. I got a new judge back in 2022, I think, is when Judge Reed came on the bench, and really sat down and we talked through the need to work on our docket. And so we now have 10. We take off in December and July, I think it's the months that we're off. That used to be just 4. We just used to have just 4, sometimes 5. If we were lucky, we'd get 6. And so, I came into office in 2011. It's been 15 years. And so we are definitely in a better place for our docket management than we've ever been.
Well, I'm not pointing fingers or anything. I just want the average person on the street doesn't understand when they come in and I say, you've been charged with a crime. If you want to go to trial, your case may be X years down the road.
Right.
And we were talking about during the break, we had COVID, all that stuff. Jefferson County has obviously moved past that. Blount County has got worked through that as well, I guess, right?
We're close, yes.
Yeah. And so we were talking during the break. You think y'all are trying cases that are relatively in the 23 year now? Close?
22, 23. Yeah, it just kind of depends on the top case, too.
Right.
And it's also going to depend, a lot of people may not realize, is let's say you have a case that's a little bit older, but there's somebody that's been sitting in jail. Those jail cases are going to take priority, and child sex cases take priority. There's a statute that allows the state to assert that. So you're going to have 2 different type cases that are going to get priority if asserted over a case, even if it's a little bit older. Thank God I've not had that happen. But you want to make sure those people, if they're not able to either make bond or not given a bond, that we get those people to trial as fast as we can. But yeah, you're looking at 24 to 36 months, depending on the type of case and the issues. Realize if there's a mental health component to that and we have to get a mental evaluation. And let's say, recently I've had one case that took about 8 years because we were going back and forth with inpatient mental health, restoring competency, and that, and then there's a wait list for mental health facilities in the state and mental evaluations. It can take anywhere from 18 to 24 months sometimes to get the evaluation done. And then if I need to send somebody inpatient for evaluation or restore competency, it could take another 24 months, okay? And so that's a problem that we see really in the system that I would love to try to find a fix for. But most fixes require money.
Yeah. And just so I cover it, Blount County has 4 grand juries a year.
You'll pick grand jury in January, April, July, and October.
Okay.
That's 18 men or women that are randomly selected to serve and hear cases. They're going to make determination of probable cause. We bring those grand juries back. We try to. So I pick somebody in January. I'll try to bring them back in March. I don't want my cases to get backlogged. That's one thing I think I've done very effectively is we don't wait 4 months. And I also don't wait until an arrest. If the case is ready, if they still haven't been arrested on, picked up into the grand jury, not having to sit through the district court portion, we're moving along, right, regardless of whether the system's moving with us.
Yeah. Well, there's a means to the madness is a one way to put it.
There is. People don't see it. Oh, I get it. It's funny, in this race I've been, on the road a lot, and one of my ADAs has been kind of helping, and I've been trying to teach him, if you want to be the DA one day, here's some things you're going to handle. He's probably come to my office 5 or 6 times and looked at me and said, I don't know how you've done this as long as you've done this, because it's not as easy as it looks.
Yeah. It's not always top. It's not always great to be at the top. It's nice to be the second sometimes. We're speaking with Pam Casey. She's running for the Attorney General's office. She's the DA of Blount County. Pam, I'm trying to think of one last. Oh, I know the one last question I want to hit you with. We got 4 minutes, Pam. All right, we had Matt Gentry a couple weeks ago. He's unopposed, Coleman County Sheriff. He could sit there till he dies, like Mel Bailey in Jefferson County. You've run 3 times. You're very successful. You could probably sit there till you die or whenever you want to quit. Why do you want to go do this now, Pam? Why not just sit there and be the DA of Blount County and have the life that you have?
I truly believe in term limits, whether they're statutorily constitutional term limits or they're self-imposed. I think it's good for communities that you don't have the same person in that office all the time. People may not realize I actually could retire today. I could have retired. I'm in overtime is what some of my fellow DAs say. And, I've been called to do, I truly have felt a calling to do this. And I think it's the time. I think it is time for an experienced prosecutor in the AG's office. But I also think for Blount County, I think that there comes a time that they need new blood. Every office needs new blood. That's how you don't become stagnant. And I'm just a big fan of term limits. I've done 3 terms. Somebody told me last night at a meeting, they said, I don't think, what do you tell the people who say, I don't want to vote for you because I don't want to lose you as DA? Well, first I say that's selfish. Number one, I've given you 18 years, almost 18 years, that I can serve you statewide. I don't know that I'll run again. I don't know if this is like a big announcement or whatever, but I believe in term limits, and I believe the time is now to run. The seat's open. I'm at my peak in my career, I truly believe, and I have all the things. I've tried the biggest cases, the hardest cases. I've argued in front of the Alabama Supreme Court. I've been present in the U.S. Supreme Court when the AG's office has argued cases back when I was at the AG's office. And so I just believe the time is now, and I believe that the people of Blount County will respect that.
Well, that's good to know. Well, Pam, we got 2 minutes left. Tell the audience out there, how can they reach you? How can they find you? How can they donate money or get to Pam Casey for Attorney General?
Well, let me start by saying we're under a blackout period until the 20th. So
okay, I don't want to get you in trouble.
Okay,
all right, sorry.
But I do have a Facebook page. I've been on social media for years. So you can either follow us at Pamela Casey on Facebook, or Pamela Casey for Attorney General, or PamelaCasey.com is our website. I'm very active on social media. I have been for probably 20 years. I credit that for winning that DA's race, is really getting out with the public. I love for people to send me questions. I'm probably about to do something that's going to scare you. I give my cell phone number out when I go out statewide. It's 256-390-5407. And people say, you got to be crazy to do that. Well, we got to be crazy to run statewide. Well, first of all, to run for office, but run statewide. But I truly believe that people should have the ability to access their elected officials. And to know that's the only cell phone number I've ever had since I was 16. I've been elected 3 times in Blount County, and I hadn't had to change the number. So that should tell you something.
Yeah, very good. All right, folks. So you got to hear Pam Casey for 2 segments. Pam's running for the AG's office. She's the DA of Blount County. Pam, thank you for coming in and spending an hour with us. She did this at short notice, folks. For me, my guest that was supposed to be here today got sick, and Pam doesn't know this, but we're going to have a lot of guests this year running for elected offices. We made a connection through a third party. Pam said, sure, I'll come down and do it. And she did it at the last minute. So kudos to you, Pam, for doing that. Thank you.
Thank you for asking me.
Oh, it was a pleasure. All right, folks, you're listening to the Legal Lowdown. We'll be back after the break. We'll be back. Bye.
Thanks for tuning in to the Legal Lowdown with your lawyer, Joe Ingram of Joe Ingram Law. Don't forget to follow Joe's Legal Lowdown podcast on iHeart. If you need a private legal consultation, reach out to Joe on his website, joeingramlaw.com. Tune in again next Saturday for the Legal Lowdown with Joe Ingram. No representation is made that the quality of legal services to be performed is greater than the quality of legal services performed by any other lawyer. He's a tough street-fighting lawyer with the highest ratings for honesty and integrity. He's here to answer your legal questions and get you the help you need. You're listening to the Legal Lowdown with your lawyer, Joe Ingram of Joe Ingram Law. Joe Ingram has more than 20 years' experience fighting for his clients here in the state of Alabama. Joe's focus is criminal defense and family law. You don't have to face your legal issue alone. You've got Joe Ingram on your side. In case of sensitive legal matters, you can always reach out directly to Joe at joeingramlaw.com and arrange for a private consultation. And now, Alabama's defender of the defenseless, protector of the people, and all-around good guy, Joe Ingram.
All right. You listen to the Legal Lowdown with Joe Ingram, your Alabama lawyer, on WERC 105.5 FM, WBHP 102.5 in Huntsville, and WRTR 105.9 in Tuscaloosa. You can always listen to our show, download, like it, share it with others, listen every week. If you have a question or a comment, go to your little red app on your phone. That's the iHeart app. That is the Spy for Rent hotline. Spy for Rent hotline, if you want to reach the show, they are our prime person we go to for investigations in the state of Alabama. Jeff Hammock, Corey Fuller are the names to know for investigation in Alabama Spy for Rent. We had Pam Casey the first hour. She's running for the Attorney General's office. We appreciate her time today. We're going to talk a bit about legal news this week nationally. Well, the first big news story of the week has to be Minneapolis and the fight with the ICE agents up there. Have you seen the pictures on TV? Minnesota looks like Serbia. Honest to goodness. All those people up there, do any of those people have a job? Go get a bottle of vodka, go get drunk, and stay in the house. It is too cold to be outside fighting with ICE agents. And by the way, if you are an elected official, what are you doing on TV? You've taken an oath of office telling people to not follow the law. You may not like the law. When an officer gives you an order to cease and desist or to stop or to go, you don't challenge it. And you, honest to goodness, do not take your car and run at an ICE agent. Enough said. Goodness. Story we're going to continue to follow. New York, biggest city in the United States. And yes, we have a socialist running New York. Folks, I'm very happy this week. A federal judge in New York has already slapped down Mayor Mandami, or however you say his name. I'm just going to call him Comrade, over the sale of about 1,000 homes to a corporate entity buyer out of bankruptcy court. the argument from the mayor's office was, well, the new people that take over will not take care of the properties any better. Judge said, sorry, I'm going to authorize the sale. I think it's going to take place by Monday. So Comrade Mandami has lost again. And by the way, I'm going to bring it up again. I'm going to say it every time it happens. He elected a socialist named C. Weaver over the tenants' issues in New York. We are talking about New York, Wall Street, the stock exchange, right down the street, the global markets. Holding hands and singing Kumbaya is not going to work in New York City. It's a nightmare up there. This is a big story out of California this week, folks. They have just passed the California Billionaire Tax Act. Have you heard of this? If you have $1 billion, if you've done so well in your life, if you've invested well, if you've worked hard, if you've created a company, whatever you've done in life to achieve that status, we're going to tax you just one time 5%. That's all. We just want 5% of your money. You know why this is important? One, there are roughly 200 billionaires in California. And two, they are quietly moving out. Back in December, the co-founder of Google, Sergey Brin, quietly in the middle of the night, moved all of his LLCs out of California over to Utah and Nevada. And by the way, he just recently bought a $71 million home in Miami. What does that tell you? He's leaving California, folks. You can tax people to death and then they're going to leave. There's not going to be anything left in California. So for all the people in California that are like the comrades in New York that want to take your money because they will not work to support themselves, pay for their own health care, pay to raise their own children. Sorry, folks. You can't come take people's money that worked hard and does well in life. It's just a fact of life. There's winners and there's losers every day. This next story, I really think this is really fascinating. Monica Lewinsky. She reappeared this week. Every now and then she comes back. And here's why she came back this week. She has gotten really media savvy. Monica Lewinsky has a podcast now. And she talks about her life and her challenges and the things that have happened to her. She was a household name back in the 90s when President Clinton was in his second term. She was a White House intern. It was alleged that she had had sex with the president in the Oval Office. She was not treated well by the press. She was treated as a homewrecker. She was treated as a heartless. President Clinton was treated so much better than her any day of the week. And when he left the office, he was able to sign a contract to write a huge book about his presidency to pay for all of his fees. She didn't have that advantage. She was left on her own. She was 22 years old at that time. Anyway, the reason why this is so important this week, President Clinton received a subpoena to testify in Congress about the Jeffrey Epstein files. And guess what? Bill was a no-show. Yes, Bill didn't show up that day. And so Monica happened to appear this week in the news. Didn't get a whole lot of press from the mainstream media, but if you're looking around for some interesting stories, it was there. And she comes out and she gives a little statement and she talks about how she was treated so much worse than Bill Clinton. I tend to agree with her all day long. But here's the real big story. There were so many people during President Trump's first term that received subpoenas or this or that, and they got held in contempt of Congress, and they were prosecuted. As of the last time I've checked, no one has sent a referral to hold President Clinton in contempt of Congress yet. And by the way, Hillary's supposed to show up and testify too. I would be willing to bet $1 any day of the week that she's not going to show up for her testimony. Funny how this changes under different administrations. And they think that the Republicans are not following the law. Propaganda, propaganda, propaganda. This is a really big story this week. This is a huge story this week, legal story. The United States Supreme Court had oral arguments related to biological male athletes in female sports. Here we are again. Supreme Court Justice Ketanji Jackson does not know what is a woman. Is it that hard to define? A man is a man and a woman is a woman. A male has more male hormones and will always be stronger, faster, and have less body fat in traditional body sports. It is not fair for a woman to have to compete with a man that claims he is a woman now. And Justice Alito, he is becoming my favorite justice. Clarence Thomas is number one, but Justice Alito, God love him. I hope he stays until he dies. Alito is awesome. He asked one of the lawyers for the male side in the argument this week. I love this question, folks. How can a court determine there's discrimination on the basis of sex without knowing what sex means for equal protection purposes? He just nailed it. He just nailed your argument. He just canned your brief. You can't sit here and talk about equal protection if you won't tell me who a man is and who a woman is. God love Alito. Hope he stays till he dies. So I think the Supreme Court has already showed their hand. Unfortunately, it will be a narrowly tailored ruling. The Supreme Court always does this in these hot topic issues. What that means is that this will become a state issue. If you're in California, then a man and a man is a woman and a woman. You go figure it out. That's the sad part of this. It brings me back to the case of the guy that was a baker that made wedding cakes, and he refused to make a cake because of his religious beliefs for people that were gay or homosexual, and they took him to the Supreme Court. He won. Sad part is because the Supreme Court narrowly they time on the second time. If you are an artist, if you are a baker, if you're a painter, whatever your skill is in life, you can't make me work for you if it's against my beliefs. You can't make me do something I don't want to do. I'm sorry. That's the downside of this, folks, is that this issue is going to come back again in another form. That is the downside of this Supreme Court issue. We talked about during the break with John. If y'all remember when during Christmas, we talked about $400,000 of lobster that was stolen from Costco. All of you thought I lost my mind or drinking wine. No. This is a bigger story than I ever thought that I found. Guys, y'all are really fixing to love this. This last week, 2 trucks, 24,000 bottles, $1 million of Sammy Hagar tequila was stolen. Now, I didn't know this at the time. I didn't know what I had stumbled upon. This is a crime syndicate. Not only is it a crime syndicate, there is a bill in the House of Representatives right now, and the acronym is CORCA. CORCA. Combating Organized Retail Crime Act. Why they have all these acronyms, I do not know, but that's what it is. They've defined it now. And I went and did a lot of research the last couple of days because I was excited that I was onto something. Here's what's happening, folks. All these organized crime syndicates are stealing large quantities of lobster, tequila, whatever it is. And you're going to say, Joe, what does it matter to me? Well, here's why it matters to you. John Q. Public, Jane Q. Public. When you go to your local market, your price is inflated to offset what they lost at the warehouse. That's right. It's affecting all of us. So much so that on a global stage, we are losing our pharmacies. We are losing our grocery stores because companies cannot offset the losses anymore. It's affecting the little guy. Somebody has to know about this. You just don't walk in and steal $400,000 worth of lobster and somebody not know about it. I'm sorry. And you don't steal $1 million worth of tequila without somebody knowing. In state legal news this week, Meemaw Ivy. Meemaw Ivy. Don't get mad at me. That's her nickname. Governor Kay Ivey gave her last State of the State address. She has not embarrassed the state. She has been a stable placeholder. If you look over the last couple administrations, we've had, we had Guy Hunt. He got prosecuted. We've had Siegelman. We had Big Jim Folsom. We had Rob Riley, who was riding on a pony. We had Bob Bentley, who was a disgrace. But what has she really done? Well, she hadn't embarrassed us as a state, but she really hasn't been out there that much. And I'm not really trying to trash her, but you don't see her out going to foreign countries. You don't see her out trying to get jobs for the state. You don't see her out in the state seeing what the people need. She's just been a placeholder. I'm hoping whoever wins the governor's race next time is up to the challenge because it's a really important job, whoever that person may be. And by the way, as we were talking with Pam Casey, Kay Ivey brought up the new legislation related to if you are charged with a sex crime of a child, rape or sodomy, you should get the death penalty. And she said that she will sign it all day long. Well, it's going to pass, and she's going to sign it. So I predict that will be legislation by May of 26 in the state of Alabama. The progress that we have seen in the state has not necessarily been related to Kay Ivey. Most of it comes up in Huntsville, the Redstone Arsenal, all this federal stuff, all the FBI buildings, all that's coming from the federal government. She can't take credit for that. That's on a national level. So one thing I would like to see, whoever becomes governor, Highway 280, just build the overpass already. Quit fighting about it. You'll be happy when you don't have to fight the traffic to get down past the summit. She asked for a 2% pay raise. Okay, that's not much. Teachers don't make much. It's really sad. The next story is concerning on many levels. If you read the news, there was an event up in Coleman this week. I think it was a cheerleading or a gymnastics competition. Anyway, a mother found this little camera in her bathroom, and it was photographing people in the bathroom. And it was turned over to the police. I think it's a really big story, and here's why. Somebody knew that children were going to be there, and so they planted those cameras. It either had to be an employee or somebody that had access to the rooms to do it in advance. I'm not pointing fingers, but I hope that person is caught, and I'm sure it will be soon. Things to do this weekend in Alabama. Well, we're talking about Coleman. There is the fishing expo up in Coleman at the Omniplex. Before you know it'll be springtime, you can go out and pick out your new pontoon boat for the summer. So go out to the fishing expo up in Coleman. This week, 3 people were arrested down in Lee County for 29 dead animals and 111 charges. Now, folks, first of all, I want to say a couple things. I have represented 3 or 4 folks that have been charged with animal cruelty. I have. It is a common theme or principle, generally speaking, that if you will hurt a defenseless animal or child, that you are socially unacceptable. There is something wrong mentally with you. I've seen it time and time again. In this particular case, and every case is unique based upon the facts, some of the dogs were killed and stabbed. Some of them were burned. It's a serious, heinous crime, and it shows that these people have serious mental misunderstanding between right and wrong. That's all the way I can say it. A story that is important for Birmingham: Saks Fifth Avenue, Neiman Marcus, filed for bankruptcy protection this week, and at the same time, they acquired a $1.75 billion refinancing structure, and they got a new CEO. They're going to try to reorganize their debts, do a cram down to their creditors so that they can stay in business. The reason why this is important, folks, there's only one Saks in Alabama, and it's at the Summit. I hope it stays in place. It is becoming harder and harder for big box stores to compete with online. But if you are going to buy high-end clothing, why in the world would you want to buy it online? You want to go in the store, you want to try it on, you want to see how it fits. When I still buy my suits, I still go to Atlanta, I still go to a tailor. I want to pick out the fabric. I want to be measured properly. I want my suit to be tailored. There's still a place for that. Last story I want to talk about is what we talked about with Pam Casey, and I mentioned under Kate Ivey. It's about this new legislation about the death penalty related to sex crimes against children. Folks, I'm a defense lawyer, so I can argue this either way as a lawyer. 1, the United States Supreme Court has ruled in 2007 or 2008 that the death penalty only applies to murder cases. Please do not call or tell me, Joe, you are for sex crimes against children. No, I am not. That's not what I'm saying. I am just saying that the highest court in the land has spoken and stated that the death penalty should not apply to anything except death. You can take the other side of the argument. 2, you can argue that the bill has suggested death penalty for sex crimes if you take an innocent child's youth, their naivety, their future, ruin their lives, so they will have to deal with serious mental trauma, maybe even physical trauma, as not being able to bear children due to being a victim of a crime, being violated by a family member, a preacher, a neighbor, whatever. That child is going to have a hard time recovering from such a traumatic event. You can go to the Old Testament on this, an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth, and I had to look it up, John. It's Exodus 21:24, so I got it right. I may miss the call letters of Tuscaloosa, but at least I got it right about eye for an eye. John looked at me like, yeah, you got that one right. So there you go, folks. You can argue it either way. I don't know where I really fall on this, folks. I'm kind of torn on this issue. But I'm starting to lean more towards the death penalty for this, and I think Pam Casey gave an excellent argument. You're going to have to bring the new case. It's going to have to work its way through the whole circus of the appellate courts, and then the Supreme Court is going to have to decide what they think about this issue. So that's a lot we've talked about in the first segment of the second hour. We're about to take a break. You're listening to the Legal Lowdown with Joe Ingram on WERC 105.5, WBHP up in Huntsville, and WRTR in Tuscaloosa. My office, if you need to reach me, is 205-825-5297, 205-825 Laws, Laws. See how that works out? You can call my office and speak to an intake specialist if you need a consultation. In the next hour, we're going to talk about this time of year. We're going to talk a lot about divorce and divorce statistics, folks. You're going to love the information I've got for you. It is overwhelming, the divorce statistics for Alabama and nationally. That's what we're going to talk about in the last segment of today's show. We've enjoyed it. We've had a good time so far. We had a great guest with Pam. We've had some really good news legally. We've had some good news locally. We'll be back after the break. We'll be back.
You're listening to The Legal Lowdown with your lawyer, Joe Ingram. If you need confidential legal help off air, reach out to Joe at joeingramlaw.com. Stay tuned for more. Joe will be right back after this break for news and weather. You're listening to The Legal Lowdown with Joe Ingram. Joe is a 20-year veteran of the Alabama courts specializing in criminal defense and family law. If you need a private legal consultation, email Joe at joeingramlaw.com. And now, welcome back to The Legal Lowdown with Joe Ingram.
All right, you're listening to The Legal Lowdown with Joe Ingram, your Alabama lawyer on 105.5, WERC, WBHP in Huntsville, and WRTR 105.9 in Tuscaloosa. This is the final segment of the week. We had Pam Casey. We're going to talk about divorce, folks, because it's that time of year in January. We're going to talk about divorce statistics. Divorce statistics for Alabama tend to be this. There are roughly 3 divorces for every 1,000 residents. Now, the 2025 statistics have not been done yet, but speaking over a track of the last 5 to 10 years, we're keeping the same average. 3 out of every 1,000 people get a divorce in Alabama. This is a very interesting statistic. 20% of marriages end in the first 5 years. 32% end in the first 10 years. 48% of spouses who married before the age of 18 are likely to divorce. Think about that. Almost half of all marriages before the age of 18 end in divorce. Makes sense, because you're not mature enough to make that decision. It's going to end in divorce. It's very unlikely. I believe that number all day long. This is a very interesting number. I really like this. Men that marry after 35 for the first time have the lowest divorce rate. And it explains a lot here. Here's why. If you're a 35-year-old male, you're more mature. Men mature later than women. It's a fact of life. A man that is over 35 probably already has had other relationships, other partners. He has developed a career. He knows who he is as a person. He's confident. He's secure. He's ready to settle down and have a family. So women, my advice to you is, if you're looking for a mate, go find a 35-year-old male that's never been married before, that's relatively successful in life. You're probably guaranteed not to get a divorce. There you go. I found this to be very interesting. Women initiate the majority of divorces, roughly 70%. And the figure even goes up. For college-educated women, it's 90% of them that initiate a divorce. You can take this number and you say, well, Joe, why? Well, it could be related to the burdens of the wife, unequal domestic labor. The woman is seeking fulfillment from a man that hasn't fully developed yet. She's more prosperous than him in her marriage. Back 20 years ago, when I was a law clerk, people used to say, well, women do not recover as well after divorce as a male financially. I think that has changed now. We have so many highly educated women, they are easily equal to overcome a divorce financially and move forward in their life. Just look at the statistics nationally of women and their education. What is the number one cause of divorce? The number one cause for divorce is communication problems. Lack of communication. There you go. That's the number one reason. If you can't communicate with your spouse, if you've tuned them out, it's not going to make it much further. I've seen that time and time again. Top reasons for divorce: lack of commitment, meaning there is a slow erosion of dedication, effort, and shared vision for the future of the marriage. Lack of commitment. If your wife sees that you're going out with your buddies on the weekend and you're not part of the family unit, you're not showing that you're committed to her. If you're not interested in things she's interested in, she sees somebody that's tuned her out. That goes for men as well. If a woman is going out with her friends on the weekend, going to bars, whatever, she's not spending time with her husband, lack of commitment. See, I can do male and female gender. Infidelity, extramarital affairs, causes a breach of trust, whether physical or emotional, that many find impossible to overcome. With today's social media, and this, we didn't have this 30 years ago, folks. We got Facebook, we got Instagram. You can go back and you can find people from high school that you haven't seen in 35 years, and you develop a relationship with them online. Doesn't have to be physical. It can be an emotional relationship. You talk about all the good times you had. You talk about going to homecoming. You talk about all the things you did. And you see that person as you saw them when you were 16 to 18. You still see them that way. You don't see them with all the baggage that they carry into this relationship, and you develop a relationship with them online. So you've tuned out your spouse. That's infidelity. Here's another one. Too much conflict and arguing. Constant fighting stemming from poor communication, making the relationship unbearable. If you walk in the house every night and your spouse jumps on you about, well, you didn't do this today, you didn't do that today, you didn't take the trash out this morning, you didn't make the bed this morning before you left the house, and by the way, you left the toilet seat up. You don't want to hear that when you come in the door. There you go. Conflict, arguing. The 4 behaviors that predict divorce with over 90% accuracy, according to the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. There you go. Here. Communication patterns. Character showing disrespect, shifting blame, and withdrawing from interaction. It erodes the foundation of a marriage. There you go. Here's another big reason people file for divorce. And this is so simple. This goes back to Dave Ramsey, Financial Peace University. Financial problems. If you have money problems, those are problems that affect every part of your life. If you get up and you're worried, do I have enough gas to get to work? If you go home on Friday, do we have enough money to pay the mortgage the first of the month? If you go home and you say, we can afford the medication that the child needs. If you have money problems, those are serious problems in your marriage, and they will affect every part of your relationship with your spouse. If you have financial problems, folks, I advise you to do two things. If it's really bad and you can qualify, go file bankruptcy and start over. I don't care what the stigma is nationally. Get a fresh start. 2, go read Dave Ramsey, Financial Peace University. Start living that way. You'll have a better life in 5 years than you do today. I promise you, every time. When people sit down with me and I have consults, the first thing we have to do is start going through the debts. And as sad as it is, a lot of these divorce cases become bonfires. We got to sell all the assets, sell the homes, sell all the toys, pay down the debts, split the equities, get a fresh start. It happens all the time. Growing apart. Partners developing different life goals, interests, or values over time, leading to emotional distance. It's just a fact of life. As you get older, you develop different interests. If you and your spouse do not grow together, you're growing apart. The biggest problem everybody has today is this little thing in your hand. It's called a phone. And mine happens to be an iPhone. And we can't put them down. I go home and I have my phone in my hand all night till I go to bed. It's sad. I'm looking at phone emails. People sending me emails from work. Put the phone down when you get home. Interact with your family. Sit down at a table. Have dinner. Say a prayer. Talk to your spouse. If you're growing apart, you're not growing together. It happens. Here's one that you just can't do anything about. If your spouse has substance abuse and addiction issues, if they won't get clean or they won't get help, you got to cut them loose. If you got children and you got a spouse that's using drugs, you got to cut them loose for the benefit of the children. You got to do what's best for the kids. You can't overcome that. Domestic violence. Physical or emotional abuse creates an unsafe and unhealthy environment. I've had several divorces this month. I've already filed several PFAs, protection from abuse orders, with the divorce complaints, because they come in and they tell me stories and I say, well, I know this is going to get bad when the person gets served, so we probably need to get an abuse order in place because based on what you've told me, the temperament is of that person. Domestic violence will cause divorce all the time. How can you tell when the marriage is over? Well, there are several. Breakdown in communication, lack of intimacy. And I'm not just talking about sex. I'm talking about intimacy, holding hands, sitting on the sofa, have a blanket around you and your spouse, as cold as it is, watching a movie on Saturday night. Loss of respect. Not treating your spouse with respect anymore. Contempt. You have contempt for them when you see them. Dread of coming home. I would rather stay in the bar than go out and have to spend the night with my wife. Well, that shows that the marriage is headed towards divorce. You treat each other like roommates. This happens over years when people have kids. They have busy lives. They quit spending time together. They quit taking vacations without the children. They become roommates instead of husband and wife and partners in life. It happens all the time. We've already talked about infidelity. Well, now we're talking about infidelity without remorse. You're out actively seeking partners, and you don't care if you get caught. If you get caught, you'd be happy because then your spouse would go file for divorce. What if you start planning a future that excludes your spouse? Well, in 5 years, I'm going to move down to Seaside and live in my beach house, and the kids will be grown. Not in there. One time, did you mention your spouse? That means you've already made plans without them. That shows that the marriage is doomed. Now, I want to talk about something that's relatively different for a minute. What is a peaceful divorce? Well, peaceful divorce is the uncontested divorce. That's where two people sit down and they are amicable and they work together and they reach a fair, respectful outcome as to all matters, whether it be finances or custody or children or 401ks or alimony. And they sit down and they put their guns away and their knives up and we sign the papers. And there's peace and harmony. They move forward. I did a divorce 2 years ago. The parents came in. They said, there's not going to be any fighting. We're going to sit down. They had already written out everything they wanted. They said, Joe, just write this up and we'll come in and sign it in about a week. I said, okay. They came in. We signed all the documents. Honest to goodness, they both smiled when they signed the papers. They went out and had dinner to celebrate their divorce. They said, we can't live together in peace and harmony, but we can co-parent our children. That is a peaceful divorce. And yes, I do those two all the time, and I would rather see it that way than a knockdown drag-out. So what are some of the big issues when you come to see me about filing for divorce? Well, the biggest issue I'm going to ask you is if you have a home, and we got to go through all the scenarios. When did you purchase the home? What's the fair market value of the home? What is the equity in the house? Meaning, if you sold the house today, what's the fair market value to sell the house? What is the debt that's owed on the house? How are we going to split the equity? If you stay here and you buy out your spouse, can you afford to refinance the house because your interest rate was probably 3%, and now the interest rate is going to be 5 or 6%. So that means you're going to be paying more interest on the debt. So that means your house payment may be double. Those are real questions we have when we talk about the house in a divorce case. And we may talk about 401ks. Well, how are we going to divide the 401k? Are we going to divide it now, or are we going to wait and divide it later when it's worth more money? Depending on which person I represent, depends on which advice I give. So those are some of the big decisions you have to make related to a house when you're getting a divorce. I did a divorce about a month ago, and we got really creative. One party wanted alimony. The marital home was paid off. And I said, well, let's do this. My client, do you want to stay in the house? Yes, Joe, I want to stay in the house. It's paid for. Okay. They want alimony. Well, I really don't want to pay alimony. Okay, well, let's do it this way. What if we get the other person to take alimony in gross, meaning a lump sum? Well, Joe, how does this benefit me? Well, here's how we're going to do it. You're going to go refinance your house. Wait a minute, Joe, the house is paid for. No, just hear me out for a second. We're going to go refinance the house. You're going to give her a lump sum of money. She's going to walk away. You're still going to have your house, but you're going to have a house payment again for about 15 years. Well, Joe, how does this benefit me? Well, you're going to keep your house. The interest that you're paying for the first couple of years, you're going to get to take off your taxes. If you have mortgage interest, you get to take off your property taxes as well on your taxes, and you still have your home. And she'll probably take less because she's getting a lump sum of money. She don't have to worry about whether or not you're going to die paying alimony. Sure enough, person fell for it. We settled the case. He kept his home. See how creative you can get in these things. And then you always have to talk to the person about, well, if we get you a divorce and you sell the house, are you going to be able to buy a new home? Well, what do you mean, Joe? Well, let's say you're the husband and you're paying child support now. Okay, that's less money you have part of your income. That's a number you got to tell your person that you're going to apply for a mortgage with. Are you going to be able to qualify for a mortgage? Because typically speaking, you can only get 2.5 times your gross income. That's what you can qualify for. So these are real serious questions that people don't sit down and think about when they're going through a divorce. We have to have all these conversations. And it may limit your ability to buy a new home. You may have to downsize a little bit. So those are kind of the things that we think about when people go through a divorce every week. Find it staggering. Something to think about here. Nationally speaking, Alabama is at the top of the chart in the divorce rates. I don't know why it is. Tennessee's at the top, and I think the top state is Arkansas, but I may be off on that. I don't know why in the South it is, but we have a higher divorce rate. Here's something to throw at you that nobody ever really thinks about. The highest divorce rate in Alabama is up in Madison County. Joe, why is that? I'm going to tell you why. Huntsville, Madison County is a melting pot of the world. What I mean by that is there are engineers that come from all over the world to work on Redstone Arsenal. These are people from foreign countries. They come here. They are away from their spouses. They develop infidelity relationships. They get a divorce. Divorce is a really good business up in Huntsville, Madison County. It just is. Fact of life. I'm not proud of it. I'm just telling you statistics. So that is some statistics about divorce. Next week, we'll talk about some statistics related to crimes in the state of Alabama. The mayor of Birmingham came out last week, said murder was down. We're going to look at the numbers in the state. We're going to look at the numbers in the city and see if they are factual or if it was propaganda. I'm not sure which one's right and which one's wrong. You're listening to The Legal Lowdown with Joe Ingram, your Birmingham lawyer, on WERC, WBHP in Huntsville, and WRTR in Tuscaloosa. If you want to reach out to the podcast, go to the little red app on your phone. That's the Spy for Rent hotline. Spy for Rent hotline. You can reach Jeff Hammock or Corey Fuller. They are your investigators. They are your go-to people. If you need an investigator to investigate your spouse, if you need somebody to do a forensic search on a cell phone, if you need to do a bug sweep in your house, and yes, they do bug sweeps all day long, or if you need somebody to serve papers in a divorce case, they are the best investigators in the state. They're the ones we use exclusively. Jeff and Corey are the people you need to go to help you. They're the best. You can always call my office, 205-825-5297, 205-825-LAWS, L-A-W-S. See how that works out? You can call my office for a consult. We'll get you in if you have a divorce situation, if you have a criminal case. You can have a federal criminal case. You can have a state criminal case. You can even have a municipal court criminal case. We represent in all three. And you may ask, well, Joe, why would the case be in municipal court? Well, it's a misdemeanor. It's not a felony. Municipal courts only handle misdemeanors. State court handles misdemeanors and felonies. And federal court handles federal crimes. That's the difference there. We've had a great show this week. We had Pam Casey, the DA of Blount County. She is running for the Attorney General's office on the Republican side of the ticket. The election is in May, I believe she said. And so we wish her well on her travels in the AG's race. We've talked about some federal news. We've talked about some state legal news. We've talked about divorce statistics this week. Folks, we're going to stay on the New York scene on Comrade. We're going to continue to follow Minneapolis. It looks like Serbia up there. Those people just need to get a bottle of vodka and go in their home and get out of the streets. I don't know what's going on in Minneapolis. It's crazy up there. Crazy, crazy, crazy. Something I want to talk about this week before we run out of time. Michael Reagan, former Ronald Reagan's son, died in the last week. And he talked about a speech that his father gave. And I love this speech. And I want to read this to you here for just a minute. I think it's so great. One of the things my father taught, no telling what a man can accomplish or where he can go if he doesn't worry who gets the credit. And today we live in a world where everybody's patting themselves on the back, and how's that working out for us? We don't share the credit. Ronald Reagan never said I. He always said we. So I can say that the people listening think how much we can attain if we don't worry who gets the credit. Just get the job done. Michael Reagan died last week, 2026, oldest son of President Ronald Reagan. Reagan was probably one of the best presidents we ever had. Folks, it's been a great week. It's been a great show. Next week, we're going to have Elvis Casely in the house. He is running for Congress. John, he's going to love this. He is running in Georgia. John's looking at me going, Joe, why is he going to be on the show? Well, we just happened to reach the Georgia line, and he is running for Marjorie, what's her name? Marjorie Taylor Greene. Thank you. He's running for Marjorie Taylor Greene's seat. There are about 9 candidates that are running for this seat on the Republican side. Elvis Casey is going to be in the house. It's going to be a great show. He's got great information. We look forward to having him. Folks, we look forward to seeing you next week. Get out and run some miles. Have a good week. Thank you for listening to the show. Got to go. Bye.
Thanks for tuning in to the Legal Lowdown with your lawyer, Joe Ingram of Joe Ingram Law. Don't forget to follow Joe's Legal Lowdown podcast on iHeart. If you need a private legal consultation, reach out to Joe on his website, joeingramlaw.com. Tune in again next Saturday for the Legal Lowdown with Joe Ingram. No representation is made that the quality of legal services to be performed is greater than the quality of legal services performed by any other lawyer.